Welcome back to Social Media and Web Analytics at Tilburg University. It's now week 3, and before we get started with the course material, as usual, I'm going to talk you through the content we're going to go through this week and what we expect you guys to go through in terms of work we want you to do to kind of continue making progress. So the video lecture this week is going to be slightly different than the original topic. So taking on some kind of advice or information that you guys have kind of fed to us via Slack, and also looking at your assignment kind of progress so far, we thought we'd take a step back and for the first part of the lecture, talk about causality and what it means to kind of make causal claims in data. So does A cause B? And then after that, to think about difference in differences as a way of estimating causal effects. It's a very clean way to make kind of causal claims in data. If you have access to some kind of experiment that you can use, either be an experiment that you designed or some kind of experiment that nature kind of put forward to you. So essentially, I want to cover 4 topics there. The difference between correlation and causation, and when do we feel comfortable making causal claims about data and the data generating process and the effect of A on B. And then, okay, how do we use experiments potentially to help us make these causal claims? These experiments are different than lab experiments that you might be familiar with from other classes. It's going to be running experiments kind of in the real world, per se. And then talking about, okay, well, can we do this in R? Right? So how can we do this kind of difference in difference analysis in R, and what would the code look like to get us started on that journey? That leads into the lab session, which kind of focuses on difference in differences and how to do it in R. And we're going to use an example that's a bit of a classic, really, thinking about the effects of search engine marketing and turning off search engine marketing. So turning off essentially advertising on Google for eBay, and kind of tracing out if there's any effect on revenue. So that turning off of search engine advertising is going to be the experiment. So eBay conducts an experiment where they turn off their advertising campaigns in certain parts of the US. And they're interested in whether that influences revenue. And that's what we're going to explore in this example. And the lab session is going to cover kind of what I'm going to think of as like the whole thing is, if you just got data and you wanted to analyze this question, how would you go about it? Loading the data, potentially tidying it up, looking for patterns in the data, running that regression to kind of tease out whether that experiment led to any changes in revenue. So doing a difference in differences regression, summarizing your results. So using some of that kind of regression tables and coefficient plotting exercises from last week, and also some interpretation. So explaining what's going on and kind of thinking through the conclusions we can make from what we do. That's going to be the lab session. Again, have a go at it. Answers will come up towards the end of the weekend. And if you have questions, post them as normal in Slack chat. We'll do our best to answer them as they arise. Then, in addition to those things, obviously we have a discussion section. They're going to be on Tuesday and Thursday, not Tuesday and Friday. So there's a typo here. Let me make that change for you. So this should be Thursday. Rather than Friday. I think there's a holiday kind of coming up that's impacting our normal timing. So on Tuesday, I'm going to take the session and I'm going to cover 2 things. I'm going to talk about any final questions or comments you might have about milestone 1 of your final project. So bring your questions and ask me then. After that session, is getting very close to the due date, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to answer kind of substantial questions much longer. And then in the second half, I'm going to focus on how to collaborate, so work with multiple people using the version control software for this class, Git, which is going to closely resemble what you need to do for the for the group assignments. So everyone's going to be working on their own little parts, and you need to be able to share those changes. And I'm going to walk through how you do that. In Hendrik's session, which is on Thursday, he's going to talk about 2 topics as well. He's going to talk about regression a little bit. So based on some feedback we've got during the week and from that kind of survey about things you want us to talk about. In particular, he's going to think about standard errors. So there was this document about getting standard errors right last week, and we're going to talk about why this is important. And he'll also follow up a little bit more, thinking about causality and causal claims using regression, and when we can feel comfortable using regression to make causal claims. And then the second topic he's going to follow on with is similar to mine. He's also going to give an example of collaborating with Git and GitHub. So again, that idea of multiple people working on a document and sharing their changes and integrating their changes together. Let me quickly remove that annotation. So additional tasks for the week, as always. Don't forget to do the weekly quiz, which is based loosely on the lecture material for the week. Any questions you have, remember to bring them along to discussion sections and ask them. I think in Hendrik's discussion section, because it's on Thursday and it's quite close to the milestone 1 deadline, I think I'll tell him that he doesn't have to answer questions about the final project that late. So make sure you've got any questions about your milestone submission done before that, and don't go to Hendrik looking for answers on Thursday afternoon. I think it's a little late for him to have to manage that. So I'm going to tell him he doesn't have to answer those questions. Nominate discussion topics that you want us to talk about next week. Again, use that survey on the course website. Tell us what we might not have been so clear about or things you want more information on. You should be working on milestone 1 for the final project. It's due on Friday at midnight. So I look forward to reading over those and seeing what you guys are up to. I'm meeting a lot of you during this week. I think I have like 6 hours worth of consultation this week talking to you guys about it. So I'm going to learn a lot about what you guys are working on in the next few days. And also get started on the first group assignment. So we made those groups and put the assignment out last week. There's been a little bit of reshuffling among some groups in terms of group members. Make a good start on that because I think it's due in roughly 2 weeks from now. So, get started on it. Don't leave it to the last minute. Leaving stuff to the last minute in this class is probably going to be slightly stressful, and we don't want you to have to unnecessarily go through that. Okay, perfect. So that was a quick introduction to what we're going to cover this week and what we expect you guys to be working on. See you soon in the lecture.